Welcome to Ghana Great and Strong. And this is the last episode. This program was started in December 2012, 5 years ago. And as this is the last episode, there are a few things I'd like to explain about the program. The year 2012 was my year of discontent. It is this discontent that made me want to share my experiences, ideas, and hopes with everyone. And so, let me explain. First of all, Group Nduom, the business that I'm a part of, was in the midst, back then in 2012, was in the midst of expansion, of growth, of trying to get a few things done. But the economy at that time and the general business environment was stifling creativity and all of our ingenuity. And particularly it was holding us back from becoming a true multinational company. There was no government support. Now, I have said many times that no, a business in this part of the world, or perhaps a business in any part of the world, should not want to depend upon the charity of government. However, government is a huge entity everywhere in the world. The least a government can do is to facilitate your ability, my ability, to start and run a business in terms of the ways that they tax, the ways they grant permits and licenses, the ways that they promote local or indigenous businesses. But our environment here in Ghana in 2012, it was not good. And if you take my own municipality, Commander Edna Eguafo Abrim, I have said that several times over and over and over again, that as the biggest employer in this municipality, no government official of any note has come to us or called us and said, please, let's have a seat. Tell us about what your business is all about. Tell us about your plans for expansion. Let us know about your difficulties so we may assist. So whether it's through the days of lights off, doomsor, bad roads, and so on and so forth, nobody, except when it is time to collect fees, except when it is time to collect taxes, except when it is time for someone to come and do an inspection, where and when they may be able to say, aha, you've done this wrong or you've done that wrong. No government facilitation. And in actual fact, in many places in the public sector, there was a hostile reception. You don't grow a business, you don't make it big, you don't cross boundaries when your home territory is one that is not welcoming. And so that was one thing that happened and was going on in 2012 that made me want to share my experience with other people. And then in 2012, I had come out of the political party I had helped to rebuild, the Convention People's Party. Many people know that the CPP was banned. The name couldn't be used, and so on and so forth. So, together with a few people, we helped to fight the court battle, but we also helped to organize and fund the activities of the party at that time. You know, from 1992, those who called themselves Nkrumah's parties, there were several: NCP, NIP, PHP, PNC, and so on and so forth. Well, some of us helped organizing meetings here and there to try to piece these parties together. At some point, it became PCP. Then it became CP, before it then came to CPP. And then some of us contested on the ticket of that party, and it is how I became the Member of Parliament for Commander Edna Iguafu-Abrim. So in 2012, I felt sad about, let me say, wasting some of my prime years of my life, sacrificing business opportunity, personal opportunities to enable this party to make a comeback and at least have some opportunity to go look for votes. Only to have some people, you might call them Latter-day Saints, because when they came, they felt superior to everybody who had been in there, and they felt that they were the correct, the purest Nkrumahs, and so those other people had to be pushed out. So these people who had not lifted a finger to help the party to come back up again, and some of which those people, some of them had even refused to help when we needed help, financial and in some other ways. And these are the people who helped to push me and other people out of that party. And especially knowing that some of these same people are the ones who sabotaged our 2008 election campaign. So 2012, that year when we had to make that final decision and go and found a new political party, the Progressive People's Party, there was a reason for wanting to continue to explain what is it that I was all about in terms of politics and in terms of helping push the national agenda, helping promote the national interests. And then in 2012, yes, the Progressive People's Party had come on the scene new. It's a political party without a lot of preparation time. And 2012 was the election year. And our 10-point agenda, the 10-point agenda we used for that campaign was truly on point. It is even relevant even today, 2017. And its focus on jobs. It was a message that resonated very well with the youth. But the fact of being having a new political party and having inadequate resources, it did not help us to get too far. So I felt that after the elections, you don't lose your message. We didn't want to lose the ideas that we had spread, but hadn't gone everywhere in the country. So I wanted a medium that would help me, allow me to continuously share my knowledge, my experience, and help create opportunities for people, but do so in a non-threatening manner and not in a direct political way, away from elections, away from the politics. And that's how come Ghana Great and Strong came into being. We started off in Accra in a small studio, Hey Jolly online radio studio in Accra. We came to Ahumka 99.5 radio studios in Almeida. He went to ATV studio in Accra, television studio in Accra. And then from time to time it has come to the Ocean One TV studio right here in Elmina, where I am this evening. So that is how it has come. I am going to tell you about something that former President Kufuor did that caused me great sadness. When Ghana Great and Strong was born to be that medium, well, the medium of communication between myself, Ghanaians, and anybody else interested in watching, interested in listening. But our objective has always been and has remained to do, to say, to discuss, to promote anything that will help make this country, Ghana, great and strong, and all of its people prosperous. And we've done, and we've talked, we've promoted so many different topics, so many different things that we hope over these 5 years, some people have taken some benefit from, and I hope 1 or 2 people have had the opportunity to advance something in their lives as a result of this program. And you see, we set a schedule, and we set a schedule to be present to broadcasts every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. every Saturday. And from December 2012, we have done so religiously every Saturday up until today. But then, what is the other thing that I wanted to spread? Somebody has said it before, so I'm not the originator. But I liked this idea that a lot can be achieved if we don't care who takes credit. A lot can be achieved if we don't care who takes credit. And that I preach to many people. I have preached to many different people. And in this program, we've come back to it every now and again. And I like it. So I'll be repeating it today as well. And some of the examples, some of the other things that we'll talk about also go along the same lines. That we must not worry who takes credit, who gets the applause, or if we do something, do people come and shake our hands and congratulate us? Do people honor us? Do they give us awards and stuff like that? And when it comes to nation building, the prosperity of the people, we must just do. Just do, and not seek to have fanfare about every little thing that we do, every little idea that we put on the table, and so on and so forth. And because of that, I want to explain myself also a little bit. You see, back in the 1990s, but particularly the 1990s, there was quite a bit of struggle that happened between myself and elements who became part of, and are still part of, the NDC political party. And every now and then it has bubbled up to the surface, even though now many of those people have become much older, so they don't have the energy to be doing these things as much. Well, there was this thing that, after all, this man is the NDC who brought him to Ghana, gave him contracts, and made him who he is. Well, let's deal with that matter. I left Ghana in 1970, the first time, 1970, came back 1971, went to the US to study high school for 1 year. I went back again in 1973 to go and study. After my studies, I worked. And I worked a number of different jobs. And in the mid-1980s, I became a partner with the international accounting, auditing, tax, and consulting company called Deloitte and Touche. When I first joined, it was called Touche Ross, and eventually became Deloitte and Touche. These days, they just call them Deloitte. Well, I always wanted to come back, but it was a Nigerian, Mr. Akintola Williams, who found me in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and asked me, "Hey, young man, what are you doing here when people like yourself are needed back home in Ghana? If you don't want to come to Ghana, if you don't want to go to Ghana, come to Nigeria or go to Abidjan." Well, he promoted it, and then I had the opportunity through Deloitte to come and do some projects throughout West Africa, throughout Africa, and even in the Middle East. So yes, I did get involved in 2 or 3 government contracts back in the early 1990s. But that is not what brought me to Ghana. And that is not what gave me the start in my profession. So it's important we set the record straight. But then also, there are some people on the other side with the NPP as well, who over a period of time had said, done some things that also had made me want to continue to buck the trend, to ensure that people would feel my independence and would feel that the national interest is beyond and above everything else. You see, how did I get involved with the NPP administration led by former President Kufuor? And let me just say that President Kufuor is somebody I respect very much, and I've appreciated the opportunity that he had given me to serve the country as a Minister of State, eventually working to be a cabinet minister, and so on and so forth. So let's get that straight. But you see, when just before I was invited to join the administration, I was a partner with Deloitte. I had a good project that I personally was doing, and it was with the African Development Bank. They had a big project they called Project Africa, and I was the project advisor, working with their president and their vice presidents. So it was sitting there that I received an invitation from the president at that time, Kufuor, through Mr. Alan Shermatin. So I went to meet with him. He showed me 2 or 3 ministerial portfolios. When I saw what was there, well, I said to him, well, I would like to be in an advisory capacity. For example, I gave him an example, that I had wanted to be the chairman of the GIPC. But he looked at me and said, well, you know, you have some experiences, international, local, that we can use. And he said, I wanted you to be right here within our midst. If you want work technically and help the country. And so, looking at the choices available, I said, well, it's the economic planning and regional cooperation one that I was interested in. Now, when he persisted and made the offer, I took that offer to the chairman of the CPP at that time, now the late Professor Alassa. And he took the matter to our central committee. The central committee of the CPP at that time, they gave me permission to go and become a part of the MPP administration led by former President John Ajikun Kufuor. So that's the story. And not only that, Professor Hagen, who was our flag bearer at that time in the 2000 election, he was given an appointment as chairman of the National Commission on Culture. The late Kojama became a DCE. The party had tried to get some 2 or 3 other DCE positions, but that was not given. And Mr. Freddie Blay became one of the deputy speakers of parliament. And he was at that time, like me, was with the CPP. But yes, I was going to tell you, what is it that former President Kufuor said or did that made me truly sad? And what I'm about to tell you, I haven't said anywhere, nowhere in the world in public. Even when I was confronted on radio, the 2012 election, I said I wouldn't comment on it. And what was it? Yes, during the 2012 elections, some of my supporters made a big deal about my participation in the construction of what has now become known as the George Bush Highway. That is the N1 highway from Tetekwashi to Malam. Especially the time when it was being commissioned and then during the election period. I had not said anything about it. But apparently, on radio, former President Kufuor called in and said to the people, and I believe it was City FM at that time, that, oh, Dr. Nduom, when he joined the Millennium Challenge program, virtually everything was done. And he just came to help guide it to its final stage. So I couldn't claim any credit or anything. Now, remember, first of all, I wasn't claiming credit anywhere. And remember what I said earlier, that I believe that a lot can be achieved if we don't care who takes credit. But you see, when I heard that, and as a matter of fact, City FM tried to make a big deal of it with me and wanted me to repudiate or to reject what former President Kufuor has said. But I remained silent and said, I'm not going to go and confront this man about this just because of an election. Well, let me set the record straight. Look, when the opportunity for Ghana to participate in the Millennium Challenge Account project, I wasn't the first one in government who was asked to lead. The first person asked to lead was the senior minister at that time, Mr. G.H. Mensah. Then it went on to the turn of Mr. Osafo-Mafu, who was finance minister. Then it went from him to Mr. Jambafo, also the Ministry of Finance. They had hired some Ghanaian person living in the UK or somewhere to to be project manager, and so on and so forth. The fact of the matter is that when it came time for the administration to ask that I take charge of the project, Ghana did not have a project. Indeed, some of the people had fooled President Kufuor, taking him to the US, thinking that through political contact and whatever else, they could go and sign some compact. Nothing had been done to advance the cause of the program. So I just want to make sure that this is one thing I had to work hard. Forget about credit, but it taxed everything that I had. I used my experience as a consultant, professional consultant, used my contacts as a former partner in an American professional services firm, and was able to walk through different corridors. And there's a lady we must give credit to. And that lady happens to be the wife, the spouse of Archbishop Duncan Williams. She was an advisor to the government at that time. She knew where to go. She was the one who also paved the way for us when we had difficulties in the project to go and meet Condoleezza Rice, to go and meet so many different people in order to advance the cause of this project. And there were many times when we had difficulties. And at some point, I had to sit behind the former president's door to demand money so that we can give contracts to Ghanaian professionals, not foreign, Ghanaian professionals, economists, agriculture experts, engineering experts, transportation experts that we got to come and assist, environmental experts. We paid them good money to participate. I took them to the US. We sat in Washington several times to develop programs, make presentations, and so on and so forth. And at some point, when they wanted to cancel all of the road projects, they wanted to cancel all of them. Some people here in that administration, led by Mr. Kufuor, said, if they will give us a compact, if they will give us some of the money, take it. Leave the road projects, and we will get over $200 million grant. I refused. And I stopped communication between myself sitting in Washington and Ghana. And we pressed on. And whatever difficulties that were there, we took care of it with Ghanaian experts. They did the work I supervised. And eventually $547 million came. And it wasn't just at the Kwesi to Malam. Many roads in Ashanti Eastern region, the ferry that was put on the Akosombo, the Water Lake, and so on and so forth. So it was hard work. So let me explain, why I felt sad. I felt sad because many people have worked so hard. But then when the money came, and it came to Ghana, then it became, in some people's minds, political. For some people, it became NPP money. And they wanted to share the monies in certain ways. But when you sign on to the Millennium Challenge Account project, you can't vary the use of the money. And I feel proud that the Kwesi to Malam Highway is one of the few road projects in Ghana that was completed mostly on time, mostly within budget, and is there for everybody to see. So it was experiences like this that made me feel that I had to continue to share my thoughts, my ideas, my hopes about what is it that we can do, what is it that we can achieve in Ghana. I remember A long time ago, I said somewhere that I know that I can earn $1 or its equivalent a lot easier in Ghana than I can in Europe, in America, in Asia. And I still believe that. What we need is encouragement, not people tearing other people down or apart or discouraging. This program, what we've been trying to do is to lift people up, give examples of what should be good. And I brought this experience with President Kufuor, the MCA program, because that is a project that showed real, very real commitment to Ghanaian professionals. And we paid them. I made sure we paid them. We paid them well so that they would deliver the best that they had. And $547 million grant money came. And it helped many people, and it is still helping many people in different parts of the country. We need to do a whole lot more of those things and not worry about who takes credit, which political party is involved. It's Ghana. It's Ghana that is involved. And so, let me one last thing. Something that I saw some time back. Someone called Frederick Donaldson in 1925. He's the one who wrote the 7 social sins. I didn't write it. Frederick Louis Donaldson wrote this in 1925. And as I've gone around and talked to students in particular, different campuses, I've shared these 7 social sins with them. And as this is the last episode, let me share the same 7 social sins with you. Number 1 is wealth without work. Wealth without work. Pleasure without conscience. Pleasure without conscience. Knowledge without character is number 3. Knowledge without character. Number 4, commerce. Commerce without morality. Commerce without morality. And number 5, science without humanity. Science without humanity. And number 6, worship without sacrifice. Worship without sacrifice. And number 7, politics without principle. Politics without principle. Well, let me share with you what are some of the topics that we've discussed frequently here on this program. Well, the one that probably I've talked about the most has been what's in the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The chapter that gives us all of us certain benefits. And I'm talking about the item to do with free, compulsory, continuous education. Free, compulsory, within the Constitution it says free, compulsory, basic education. And we have talked about it here, and for what reason? It's for several reasons. As an employer, I feel the pain of wanting skilled labor, educated labor, people who can even just read, write, do simple arithmetic, and so on and so forth. People who have sat in classrooms to gain instruction and not finding some of the right ones, because in many places the children who are supposed to have gone to school, they didn't go. Now, somebody might be asking me, well, but we have many unemployed graduates. Well, if you want to go all over Ghana, like Group Nduom, my company, like what we do, quite often you go to a certain town in whatever the region is, and we are in all the 10 regions, we're in all the districts. You want to employ people from there who know the territory, who know the people. In many instances, it's not everything that you want a local, but for many things you need a local. But if you can't find a local person, it's difficult. Who speaks the language, who knows the customs. So it is important that we educate everybody. But also, we've made the argument here that virtually every country that has done well and become prosperous has some form of compulsory education. I'm not just talking free. I'm saying compulsory education, where it's a must for every child, boy, girl, whatever, whoever that person is, to sit in classroom for a certain number of years. It is so in America. It is so in Britain. It is so in France, in Germany, and so many other places. As for Japan, they even take some of their best educated people with master's degrees and PhDs to teach the younger children. To teach the younger children, because your formative age is an important age. So because of that, here on this program, I have also tried to advance the policy of that I believe in, which the PPP also believes in, of starting this free compulsory education from kindergarten. From kindergarten. Because other countries also recognize that you start them very young, open their minds, develop their attitude towards learning. And that is important. So that is what we've tried to talk about over and over and over again. And so from time to time, yes, some people from MPP or NDC or some other political party, they've tried to play a little bit of a game with us here and there, especially when former President Mahama will talk about what is he? It's progressively whatever education. Now, in the Constitution, it doesn't talk about progressive anything. In the Constitution, it gave a period of 10 years for government to prepare, and then it says free, compulsory, basic education for everybody. And then earlier on, when the current president Nana Akufo-Addo started talking, he didn't talk about free education. He didn't talk about free, FQ, free compulsory universal basic education. All of a sudden, we heard free SHS as a slogan. Well, we have made the point here that you can't talk about free SHS when basic school is not free, and also when basic school is not compulsory. If the child doesn't go to basic school, they cannot enjoy free SHS. If a child can't afford basic school, where is the SHS? We're still discriminating against others. And yes, as now free SHS is being implemented, many more children are going to school who would have gone to school anyway if they had gone to basic school and had passed to move on. So we're catching more. But I am saying that there are many more we are leaving behind. And our advocacy on this program has been, let's catch everybody and let's catch them young. So I'm not one of the critics of this current administration to say that there's a problem with free SHS. Yes, anything new will have a problem. I'm not against it. I'm saying it doesn't go far enough. And it doesn't start early enough that we must also add the compulsory element. And it should be free from kindergarten all the way to the end of senior high school. And it should be continuous. So scrap that BECE and let's move on. So that's a topic we've been discussing here over these 5 years. And we will continue wherever else that we go to talk about it. So we want you to keep up that discussion. A second thing we've talked about quite a lot here has been the matter of the election of district, metropolitan, municipal, chief executives, and all assembly members. It's something that we feel that would be a huge, huge thing. Big progress-making change to happen in Ghana. That if the people are smart enough to cast a vote to elect a president, a member of parliament, an assembly member, they are certainly smart enough to cast a vote to elect all of their assembly members and the chief executive. And I speak from experience because I've been an elected assembly member before. So I know what happens down there. And I know what sort of liberation will happen. And I know that the funds that come to the ground at the district, municipal, metropolitan level, it will find great expression there. And people wouldn't be toying with the people's money back in Accra. So it is important. It is important that we get this thing done. And if President Akufo-Addo says he's going to do it, well, let him do it, but let him do it quickly. So Ghana can take benefit from this quickly. It is something he talked about very vigorously in the latter stages of his campaign. It is something that he talked about right after the election. These days, I don't hear much of it. Well, they are talking about creating regions. Well, yes, you want to create regions, but let's get back to giving power back to the people to elect their own DCs, restructure the assemblies. Let's make the position of chief executive real, powerful, and one that would attract people like myself to want to go and compete to become chief executives and show what we can do at the local level. And let me just say to you, if you want to go into the Constitution, chapter 20 of the Constitution, it's there. That's if you go to chapter 20 of the Constitution, 1992 Constitution, the item 242, 242, 243, and so on and so forth. That's where the problem is. Those are the areas that need amendment. Those are the ones that say the president will appoint 1/3 of the members of the assembly. The president would appoint, subject to the endorsement of the assembly members, a chief executive, and so on and so forth. That's where I'm talking about. We also have another matter we've discussed here has been corruption. We've talked about it several times. Corruption. And corruption, how do you define it? I've given a definition here on this program as a dishonest or fraudulent conduct by those in power, typically involving bribery and so on and so forth. Corruption. And also said that when something becomes institutional corruption, then now that is distinguished from bribery and other kinds of obvious personal gain. But that problem of corruption arises in an institution that depends on financial support from people who have interests that may conflict with the primary purpose of the institution. So we've talked about corruption, and we've talked about it in so many different ways, and on several occasions I had given estimates, 3 billion, 4 billion, I'm not talking cedis, dollars a year that we lose because of the acts of corruption that we engage in all over our country in so many different areas, and not just by politicians, but by public officials, private sector institutions, and so on and so forth. Corruption, we've talked about it a lot. A lot. We have also talked on this program about the powers of the president. And yes, I've wanted to become president of this republic, but I have recognized that the president of the republic has so wide powers, more powers than many presidents or prime ministers and so on and so forth in the world. The Ghanaian president is more powerful by our constitution than the American president. Because the American system, there are checks and balances. There are things that the president can't do that the Senate or Congress can do. But in Ghana, that one person, the president, he appoints his executives. His executives can descend to go to parliament and can go and sit in parliament and engage in debate. They have seats in parliament, ministers of state who are not parliamentarians. And the president actually picks members of parliament, takes them to become members of his administration. So where is the separation of powers? Where are the checks and balances? And this all-powerful person, he appoints heads of several state institutions, ambassadors, high commissioners, DCEs, ministers of state, regional ministers, and so on and so forth. Well, we are saying for our own good, for Ghana to become great and strong, let's remove some of these powers. Let's separate the executive from the legislature. Just as there's a separation between the executive and the judiciary. So we can have proper separation of duties and proper checks and balances. And I've quoted several times in all sorts of other things. Let me just very quickly, because we're getting to the end of our time here. Chapter 7 of the Constitution is about the representation of the people. And I have said to you over and over and over again that the law gives the Electoral Commission certain powers that it is not using. The law says a foreigner can't make a contribution to a political party. It says political parties must render accounts. It says there are certain requirements for you to become a political party and remain so. But those laws, there are no rules to administer them, no procedures to administer them. So people do as they please. Where they get the monies from to fund their campaigns, nobody knows, no one seems to care. Somehow somebody becomes president, MP, whatever. But then who is pulling their strings because they gave them money? So we've talked about those. We have talked on this program about other things. The economy, yes. We have talked about fuel, including premix. And my view on this program has always been remove government's hands from premix fuel and let us go. Everybody who wants premix fuel, yes, you can subsidize it because we subsidize other products, and let the people go and buy. And stop this premix secretariat and the politicization of what these poor fishermen and their women go through. I have talked here about entrepreneurship, and we have talked about the menace called galamsey. So there are many things we've talked about, and I have enjoyed bringing this program to you these 5 years. Where am I going to go with this? Well, we are going to edit the program and we'll do repeats of it from time to time. But I'm going to move on next year and bring to you a different kind of program that is not bound to Ghana, that is international in scope. Many of you have sent me messages. I want to say thank you for all of you who have sent messages to me today, this evening, and those who have watched on television, on radio. Thank you for keeping faith with me for these past 5 years. This has been Ghana Great and Strong. My name is Papa Kwesi Nduom.